And they had these two contemporary composers, Sara Devachi and Robert Takahashi Novak. The performance like 45 minutes long. And it was such a like active experience for me to really sit and like meditate and think, to just really be alone with my thoughts in that way. It's not an experience that you find in games all that often. Sometimes it does seem like sound many of the modes that you described is often much more transactional, more of that.
Well, I would say that to enable this form of listening, reduced listening, a game would have to be very much catered to that because in the game there's a lot going on, and there can be a very lush and dense soundscape. Thinking about, let's say, an online shooter, something like Battlefield. You hear shooting, you hear explosions, and all of that. And it's important to listen. It's important to do um, the codal listening, maybe to understand what is that sound, who is shooting, right? And also where is it coming from? So the causal listening to understand, oh, my enemy is like here or there, and I need to act in a certain way. But with reduced listening, I'm not gonna just stand still and just listen to my environment because I don't think I will well, be very successful in an action game like that. And so for reduced listening to happen, the game environment would have to really be catered to that. It would have
Right.
to be made in mind with people actually taking a moment and hearing things. Yeah, that is quite rare.
Yeah, yeah. On both sides, it's like it's the act of faith on the part of the designer that this is something that people would be interested in, and then is like an act of like patience on the part of the player to know what it is. I do think this like question of expectations does come up quite a bit in like lots of like other media. I'm thinking like in film, like Kelly Reichardt, the director, makes these very slow meditative films, but I kind of know like what I'm getting into with a Kelly Reichardt film. That like there's an expectation there, and I think sometimes it can be hard for players to, maybe get into that mindset before they sit down and do something like that if they were expecting something else. Yeah.
Yeah. And perhaps if I
Um,
might add,
yeah.
there's also the aspect of, well, I think our world and games are often very fast paced. And so there's not necessarily space to slow down like that. And I mean, I love movies, but I'm not a big expert. But I would dare to say that probably some of the most successful movies that made the most money might be the ones that don't necessarily facilitate like very slow and contemplative experiences. And I can see how that is also reflected in games, because if we look at some
Right.
of the
Yeah. Yeah.
most
Sure.
successful ones, um, yeah, most of the time it's not something where reduced listening and slowing down is always, uh, yeah, the center of the gameplay.
Yeah. Although I guess that would be an encouragement. Like when we think about like experimentation in game design, like maybe that is a place where, we think about it being in from a interactivity, like creating new game mechanics or that type of thing, or telling new stories. New and novel interactions with sound through music feels pretty experimental to me. So maybe we'll see more of that at some point. Are there any non-game contexts, sound art, installation work, that point to like maybe where games could go along those lines? Like if you're a game designer, that's like maybe my people are not necessarily like in the world of games for the reasons that you outlined. Maybe they exist in other media.